In 2015, Egypt's military-led government under President Sisi announced plans to build a brand new capital city in the middle of the desert, with an estimated budget of $60 to $70 billion. By 2021, the central CBD skyscraper was completed, giving the new city an official presence outside of Cairo. Much like how Versailles was created outside of Paris during France's royal era, this new capital is seen as a way for Egypt's leadership to escape protests and public unrest. Let's take a look at a few images of this city. The entrance gate, the presidential palace, and the parliament building. These structures are designed to feel grand and symbolic, drawing on Egyptian and Islamic cultural elements, forming what some call a pharaonic neoclassical style. Interestingly, most of the construction and design work has been done by Egyptian companies. Even though these buildings look ancient, they're made with modern materials and technology. Think of them like modern architecture dressed in historic costumes. While they resemble the grand government buildings seen in some Western countries, they serve a different purpose: centralized control. The master plan is massive, 700 square kilometers, about the size of Singapore and 1.5 times the size of Cairo. Yet it's only expected to house 7 million people, about a third of Cairo's population. Phase 1, covering 168 square kilometers, is mostly complete. While some buildings are visually striking, the overall urban design is widely considered a failure. So what does the layout look like? It's highly segmented, with different areas for different functions. A green river park slices through it east to west, and a major transit line runs north to south. On the far east is a new international airport that's supposed to rival London's Heathrow. On the west, space is set aside for a massive new Ministry of Defense, nicknamed the Octagon. There's even an Olympic city with a 90,000-seat stadium aimed at hosting the 2036 Olympics. In the northeast, you'll find the administrative district, home to the presidential palace, 34 ministries, intelligence agencies, and the 2 houses of parliament. Nearby is the Islamic Cultural Center, with a 100,000-person capacity grand mosque. There's also a performing arts city and an opera house. Around the Green River are yellow zones for international investors, office buildings, housing, and even a World Expo area. The blue zone below is for embassies. In the middle lies the CBD, built by a Chinese construction company, and next to that is a military complex with housing for officers and troops. It all sounds impressive, but the layout, segregating each function into separate zones, is outdated and problematic. This classic empire style of city planning may offer security and show off power, but it fails in real-world usability. It separates where people live from where they work. In modern urban design, this leads to ghost cities, packed during the day, deserted at night. It also causes traffic jams and wastes city space. Post-World War II Europe tried this functional separation based on the Athens Charter, but by the 1960s it was already causing problems. Brazil's capital, Brasilia, is a perfect example. Beautiful on paper but difficult to live in. That's why today's urban planning focuses on 6 key principles: functional organization, land use, economic sustainability, spatial design, urban aesthetics, and livability. Egypt's new capital ignores all of them. For example, commuting across zones will be a nightmare. Wide roads dominate the landscape, but public spaces and walkability are lacking. Housing zones are far from workplaces. Valuable land is wasted on oversized government buildings, while people struggle to find affordable housing. Worse, the Green River isn't really a river. Egypt already has one of the lowest per capita water supplies in the world, and this artificial river has no real source. It relies on water pumped from the Nile, just to evaporate in the desert heat. Ethiopia is also filling a massive dam upstream, further reducing Egypt's water supply. The desert location adds more headaches. The city is built on uneven land, with a 200-meter elevation drop from southwest to northeast. Flooding during seasonal storms could easily swamp entire districts. The American architecture firm SLM had originally designed a more flood-resistant plan, using natural desert valleys as drainage channels. But that was scrapped when Egyptian companies took over and paved over those dry riverbeds. And all of this is happening while Egypt's economy is in crisis. In 2019, Egypt had $40 billion in foreign currency reserves. Now it has barely half that. With limited local funds, the military government turned to foreign investors. Egypt earns money through strategic assets, like the Suez Canal, tourism, and foreign aid. But most of the national budget is still funded by debt or outside help, especially from oil-rich Gulf states. After the Arab Spring ousted President Mubarak in 2011, the Muslim Brotherhood briefly took power before being overthrown by the military in 2013. Since then, Gulf monarchies have supported el-Sisi as a bulwark against Islamist democracy movements. But falling oil prices weaken their willingness to give direct aid. Now Egypt has to sell investment projects like the new capital to raise funds. Initially, Dubai developers showed interest, but quickly backed out after realizing the project wasn't realistic. China agreed to build the CBD on a $2.55 billion loan, but was otherwise cautious. The rest of the project is being built using money borrowed from international markets, with few clear buyers in sight. To manage all this, Egypt set up a special company in 2016, ACUD, controlled 51% by the military and 49% by the Housing Ministry. It was granted full land rights to the 700 square kilometers and operates outside Egypt's budget and parliamentary oversight. Construction is largely controlled by military-owned or military-linked companies. Retired generals oversee luxury housing projects, and government employees are expected to buy homes in the new city. But most of the borrowed money is spent on foreign contractors and imported materials. Only a fraction stays in Egypt, and that mostly ends up in the pockets of elites. Ordinary Egyptians can't afford these homes. Foreign tourists and investors won't likely want to live in a desert fortress either. So the new capital might become a ghost city, or worse, a monument to failure. Egypt now owes over $150 billion in foreign debt. Inflation is soaring. The currency has lost more than half its value. Egypt is now deeply dependent on bailouts from the IMF, World Bank, and EU, loans that must be repaid in dollars. What's el-Sisi's plan? Build even more. Besides the new capital, Egypt is planning 16 other new cities, with a total of 61 on the drawing board. That's over 10,000 square kilometers of new development, despite having a population with an average income of just over $3,000 a year. The truth is, no one seriously believes these cities will be successful. Even if the new capital manages to sell some homes to officials and military families, it won't be enough to repay the massive debt. And if the project fails, the blame will land squarely on el-Sisi. His military colleagues might turn on him. His legacy could end like Mubarak's, in a cage on trial, with billions lost and a desert city standing empty as a reminder of mismanagement. Ancient Egyptians spent thousands of years building monuments in the desert, but they had plenty of food and no foreign debt. Today's Egypt imports half its grain, and the number may drop to 40% self-sufficiency in the future. If all the country's labor is spent building empty buildings instead of feeding people, a famine could be next. Even the pyramids, built with simple tools and local stone, eventually became ruins. What chance does a billion-dollar glass and steel city in the desert stand? El-Sisi's new capital may never be inhabited, and could collapse financially. Like Mubarak, he may end up trialed and imprisoned. Those who lock him up may be his military colleagues, the Muslim Brotherhood, or debt holders from Gulf oil states. But unless Sisi dies early, his fate probably won't be much different than Mubarak's.